Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. For all those that are watching this small lecture. Um, I have a lot of things planned for 2025. One among many things would be to have live lectures in financial modeling, financial analysis, data analysis. So I have dedicated 2025 for just that purpose and specifically for you. Sorry, I haven't been online for so many months and possibly years. I was so busy with a number of things, overwhelmed with a lot of things. But I just have this conviction that I have to get back to things that I love the most. And this is just giving the smaller quantities of knowledge that I have on my areas of specialization. So by next week, I think by Monday, I'll start full-time lectures or tutorials on financial modeling, more specifically to energy. So those that who need to may want to subscribe to this course, they'll need to have some basic knowledge in Excel, just basic knowledge. I'm in an environment where I have access to people's desires in as far as the project financing in energy is concerned. They do all what it takes to prepare or to have the power purchase agreements executed. But then when they are all executed by all the parties, it becomes very difficult for them to access financing. I'm sure you're aware that there are a number of reasons that would actually lead to not reaching financial close. But most of the things that I've observed is the inadequacy on project documents. And that has actually led to a number of these projects not going to the construction phase. So one of those documents is a financial model. People don't take time to develop or hire people that would develop bankable financial models, robust models that would give comfort to the lenders. You have to remember one thing. that project financing, especially in the energy sector, is one of the most trending things across the globe because of global warming. So the traditional way of generating power through hydro has been questioned over the years because most of the reservoirs are actually going dry, and countries have no option but to either go thermal or power the power stations, which may be very difficult to raise financing because they're termed as not green. But the quicker ways of actually raising financing in this particular sector is through renewable, solar, because it doesn't take time. In under a year, you'll be able to construct and have your electrons flow on the grid. But it is not easy to raise financing. These projects typically have a capital structure of, say, 30, 70 equity debt. You would be lucky having it at 2080 or 1585. So the owners of financing would certainly require some level of comfort for them to disperse funding for your project. It doesn't matter the type of investors. There could be those that are high risk, those that have high appetite for risk, such as the equity shareholders or equity investors, or those that have a very conservative risk appetite, who are actually called debt investors. It doesn't matter. They will still want to see a bankable document from yourself, who, in this case, you are the sponsor. And many times, and this is what I've seen, many times that these project sponsors, they do not have the funding. They do not have the funding for equity. They do not have the funding for debt. They entirely depend on external stakeholders to buy into their vision, to buy into their desire, to buy into their business model, and be able to release funding for the project. So for those that have high capital risk, like equity investors, by the way, there are institutions that invest in equity, and there are those that invest in debt. Many of them you find FMO, Propaco, FDB, DSB, FDB, Development Bank of South Africa, IFC. The number of institutions that have high appetite for debt financing. But you as a project sponsor, you need, and I'm saying it calmly, you need to invest in project documentation. You have to do your feasibility study in full, your SI, environmental study has to be done. And especially this time around where the world is convinced that human activities are denting or hurting this earth. So most of the investors, whether debt or equity, they are pro earth preservation. So your environmental study has to be very thorough. It has to actually demonstrate that the natural capital is intact or has minimal distortions. These are riverways, the ecological life is intact, maybe with minimal interruptions or dents. The study must ensure that the PAPs, project affected people, are not complaining, have been remunerated well, they're okay to move from the project site or the envision the project site to their new places or what they would call homes. So those targeted project sites must be free from complaints. Profits must not override the general interest of humanity. So your ASI has to be done properly, well. Your grid impact study is one of the most important documentations that has to be prepared with a level of professionalism. We see many times people rush these things, avoid to follow the due process. It's possible to have a power purchase agreement without a grid impact study. Mostly, the grid impact study would be a CP, a conditional precedent, in the power purchase agreement for it to be effected. So one of the CPs could be on the grid impact study, on the financial clause. Those could be CPs. But this is just an appeal to power developers that if you can, wait a little bit so that you do your grid impact study. Your grid impact study informs you of what must go into the financial model. So we'll be developing this financial model together. I've just started with the input sheet to show you the elements that would be in an input sheet, or that is supposed to be in the input sheet, and I will be giving reasons on each and every segment. I intend to finalize this financial model in the next 4 days or so. So we'll be together running through until everything is done to show you how complex a bankable financial model is supposed to be and why certain things are supposed to be included in that manner. Sometimes I see spreadsheets that are called financial models with just slight interrogation. You find that they are not financial models at all. They're just spreadsheets. They do not give a level of comfort to the providers of financing to invest in equity, invest in debt. Remember, I did actually mention to you that equity investors have high risk because for them, they rely mostly, if not all, on dividends, which is gambling. If the project wasn't well screened, you would end up losing everything that has been invested in there. Different. Hmm? You will be in lecture, in my lectures. You can also start a program to lecture your friends, a TV program, like those two girls. But who and who? Safari and who? Hmm? I don't want to be like that. Hmm. Why what? Today I'm going somewhere. We can go tomorrow. Tomorrow I've got something to do. Okay, we'll see.
What's in that bag? That bag.
It's a camera. You'll see it later when they come. Just close this side, Mama. When they come so that they connect things together. And you see how they are going to be connected, huh? Hmm? So you will tell me when they come. You will know outside. They are in the sitting room. Oh, ah. Mhm. So the first part in the assumption sheet, you need to have on project information, the project name, obvious location, maybe the size, project start date. From the project start date, I'll have to include some few important timelines here. I have to include when financial close will be reached. Then the COD date, which is the commercial operation date. Then the project lifetime, which is mostly linked to the period of the PPA. Then we go to cost assumptions. So on cost assumptions, you have your CapEx, you have your OpEx. So under the capital expenditure, it will be the solar panels. The components under capital expenditure of the solar panels. That is dollar per kilowatt. We have the inverters. Again, to be dollar per kilowatt. Mounting structures, dollar per kilowatt. The BOSS, balance of system per kilowatt. You multiply the numbers that you get in here with the system size. It gives you the total cost on these 4 items, plus your engineering, procurement, and construction costs will come there, which will be much bigger value. And other costs here to be permitting, if you are in Zambia, to be those costs that you have to pay, if there are any, at Energy Regulation Board, for your generation licenses, many other licenses that have to be paid, maybe at PACRA, at ZEMA, which is Zambia Environmental Management Agency. Those costs, you have to include them here. When you are done with the first part of cost assumptions, you go to your running costs. These are costs. First, these costs here, the first part of the cost assumptions will be during construction. These other costs is basically during operating activities or commercial operations. You have your annual maintenance costs, not a very big number. Usually it's 1 to 2% of the total capex of the total number here. You have your insurance cost, your property tax, and your other ongoing costs. On revenue, There are three items there on revenue that would actually come in. One would be the issue of the electricity generation. How much are you generating? How much are you sending into the grid? What is the tariff, the PPA tariff? And what is the annual escalation? Usually the annual escalation will be maybe about 2%, 2 to 3%. Others would use the USPPI, which is very common in most of these project financed. Then from revenue assumptions, sorry, we have financing assumptions. So under financing assumptions, you have the capital structure itself, which is basically the equity portion, the debt portion, what is the debt interest rate, door-to-door tenor, which I'll be explaining next time in my next video, which is once you have the door-to-door tenor, obviously the other thing that you need to have is the moratorium or grace period. Mostly the way grace period works is that if it's a hydro project or any project, say it takes 3 years. Your COD will be 3 years. No, the moratorium, sorry, the time to pay will be 3 years plus 6 months, because it is assumed that it is the project itself that is going to generate funds to cover debt. So if that is the case, it means that you should be able to demonstrate when you'll be able to generate these funds to pay debt. So mostly you have door-to-door tenor will be say 18 years. If moratorium or grace period is 2 years, then it means that the long term is just 16 years, which would be 18 minus 2, then you have 16. But the time that you have to start paying, you always have to add the 6 months from COD. Then you have your target debt service coverage ratio, part of your lender's covenant, that our coverage ratio is 1.2 or 1.3. So the model has to be tweaked in such a manner that you're still able to generate those meaningful returns or numbers at least to cover debt. I'll end here in this first video. It's just to welcome you or to give you the appetite that you should enlist yourself to beautiful course that will be undertaken. I'll be very consistent, and this course aim is to just take 2 months. I'll need to, the maximum class limit is 40. The pricing and everything else shall come later, but if you are interested in this course on building financial models for renewable energy. Please, first hit the subscription button. Secondly, reach out to me on this email address. Then we'll discuss the cost, the pricing, and if you're all good, you'll be part of this interesting class. To be very practical, designed for people like yourselves, presented or tutored by person like myself, who is actually in the thick of things, who is actually walking the talk. Thank you and see you next time. Thank you.